Welcome to the thrilling world of Security Squawk, where we explore cybersecurity. Guiding you through online threats, we'll aid you in understanding safety protocols and trends. Meet our gurus, Bryan from Exact IT, Reginald from Arc Solvers, and Randy from Tech Rescue. Together, we'll delve into current events and hot cybersecurity topics, helping you comprehend their impact. Stay informed, stay secure. Security Squawk, the business of cybersecurity. Buckle up, let's dive in.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Security Squawk podcast, the business of cybersecurity. I'm Bryan Hornung here, as always, with Randy, Bryan, and Reginald Andre. What's up, guys? How are you today?
Doing well.
Doing pretty
Good to see you. Yeah.
For the two guys that have hair, but you're both wearing hats.
That's right.
Versus me.
That's right. It's hat day today, buddy.
That's right.
All right.
That's right. We get to wear hats today. It's pouring rain here, so have to fill it in. So here we go. Wow, look at that username. Anyway, today, guys, we got a Minnesota town where the town had water, but the well wouldn't turn on. Someone had reached into the controls, and Randy's going to let us know who he thinks is behind it and what he thinks is going on, what those consequences could be if what we think is happening is actually true. And then we're going to jump into a healthcare giant that got hit by 2 crews at once, and 30 million people's records are being held ransom by a group we kind of talk about all the time on this show, it seems lately. And we're going to wrap up with a story about a 2-minute Teams call from a fake IT guy that locked down an entire company by the next morning. And today's show is going to wake a lot of business people up, a lot of IT people up, to the fact that hackers are adjusting, hackers are changing. We're going to talk about why that is on today's show, because the things that you teach your employees, the things that you put in the security awareness training, that stuff can get stale real fast, and tactics can change and what cyber criminals are relying on to hack into your business, to deploy the ransomware, to steal your files, all those different things pivot and change. And that's why this show is important. So, if you find value in this show today, please share anything you have, questions, comments, right on the platform you're watching us for. We'll see it here on the streaming platform we have. It's how you can interact with us in the show. You can also support the show by just liking, sharing this on your own thread, leaving reviews where you can on podcasting platforms and on places like YouTube, giving us a thumbs up. All those little things help other people find this content, and that's what's important. So somebody wants to know what the average cost of a data breach is these days. Well, that changes, but we can get into that. So anyway, let's get into it, guys. First story that we're going to hit with, or topic that we're going to hit with, is Randy. You're going to bring us through this story basically coming out of Minnesota, but they had apparently, 30 water systems had their controls, I guess, tampered with is the word we're using. Certain feds think Iran is behind it, but Randy, you've been digging into what happened and you got kind of boots on the ground. So walk us through what's going on and what you know so far.
Yeah, so you are correct. There were 30 something different water supply corporations that were hit in Minnesota. It did appear to be a coordinated attack Sunday and Monday of last week. So about a week ago was day 2 of it. For example, in the city of Brom, or I would assume that's how they pronounce that, they just took their plant. Their plant was offline. People were having trouble figuring out what was going on. But at the end of the day, there's several things about this that are a little fishy. So the finger is getting pointed at potentially being backed by Iran. So y'all know there's stuff going on over there between Iran and the United States. So this could literally be Iran. We had a big segment we talked about back when Ukraine and Russia, when that war broke out, because right away we saw all kinds of like attempts to get into 365 tenants. You know, we saw it like 5x from Russia-based sources. We saw it 10x from Chinese-based sources. And, you know, we gave the warning back then, whenever there's a hot war, that means there's a bigger chance of a cyber war basically happening. And right now, with a hot war going on over there, it is being said that this is Iran, that Iran is behind this. You probably ought to take everything with a grain of salt because there is a hot war going on over there. But it does appear to be coming from Iran so far, Bryan. Disturbing thing is they're not 100% sure on all of these, how they're getting in, except that there was a CVE, which is basically a published known exploit that was released very, very, very recently that talked about some of the controls that work in these water systems. But we're also seeing evidence that the bad guys were downloading the basically the software that the good guys would use, connect to that, and then manipulating the dashboards. So they're all up in their business. And then it appears also that this has spread to at least 7 states. And it seems to have kind of settled in that it appears that their goal was to cause a loss of system pressure. So the way the water, at least in the States, the way the water works is you want to have a certain amount of pressure because pipes crack and, you know, fittings don't work 100%. In fact, I've read as much as 1/3 of all water gets leaked out on its way to your house because of, you know, cracks and things like that. So the purpose of the water pressure is so bad stuff doesn't flow back into the cracks. And in this particular case, it appears that they were trying to lower the water pressure, the system pressure, if you will. So then like the untreated groundwater and or sewage would backflow into the distribution pipes and then get pumped out to all of the customers or whatever. We're not seeing that kind of contamination level that's not been confirmed, but it does appear that that's what they were trying to do. And then one last thing, this is not the first time that we've seen this, the coordinated attack. We saw what appeared to be coordinated attacks that's happened several times over the past several years, but this seems to be a pretty big one. And I would love to hear you guys' thoughts on all this stuff.
Yeah, you know, with us having the ability to go back to our show notes, I found I don't know who talked about it, but back in March of this year, we actually went over a Bleeping Computer article where the CISA, FBI, and EPA all shared a bulletin talking about different, for the governors and for the different water districts to make sure that their cybersecurity was ample on their water systems. And they specifically were talking about Iran and Chinese state-backed systems. So that's interesting there. So they did at least get a warning that this could happen. Another thing that I was doing some research, and it seems that nothing happened in the sense where, you know, someone drank the water and it was overfilled with chlorine. But it seems like this was more of a psychological in the sense of like, hey, we can reach your critical water systems whenever we choose. And if you continue the rabbit hole of Facebook, you know, this is why the administration has halted continuing the strikes. But that's a rabbit hole in that, you know, who knows, right?
Well, you're most likely right on with that. I mean, when you talk about what's going on over there, it's almost like we brought a tank to fight hornets' nests. And, you know, even if you blow up a hornet's nest, there's still hornets everywhere. And it's a different kind of a battle. And that's very likely what you said, a psyop. Now you got poopy water. And you know what? When you live in a democracy / constitutional republic, the leaders have response to the people. And if everybody's going to drink poopy water because we're fighting Iran, if that goes on long enough, the American people will just say, stop it. And, that could make everything stop over there. So I think that's a great point, Andre, bottom line.
So I'm looking at this from this aspect of what do we normally see cyber criminal groups do in these situations? And from my understanding, they had deep enough access to where they could have done something to demand some kind of payment, right? In other words, they had him over a barrel at some point where they could have said like, hey, we got you, we can do this. They don't really know how they got in. So that makes it hard to kick them out, right? So it's like they almost willingly have backed off at this point, right? That right there, sitting on the outside, not really having the details, you can just piece it together and say, it's pretty simple what's going on here. I mean, it's not a cyber criminal group looking to get paid because nobody demanded any money, right? To me, that's the scary part. When criminals hit you, they want a payday. When nobody asks for a dime, it usually means the government is testing whether it can flip switches inside our infrastructure or not. And guess what? Randy's confirming today that there's something going on in various parts of the country where this is occurring on water systems, right? So I don't know. Physical water tower keeps feeding the town while operators are scrambling. It took them about 90 minutes to kind of get it under control, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but it probably is when the water is going in one direction and it shouldn't be. So every business needs to take this as a thought, right? This is the water system. Could be a power system down the road, right? It could be the internet. It could be your AI, right? That companies are increasingly becoming more reliant on to operate. You need to have a fallback plan. And that's the moral of the story from coming out of this, right? It's like, and it's crazy with the water because everybody's so used to the plumbing just working that, when you have a problem like this one day and they have to shut things down, really gives you a wake-up call as to like, hey, do we have a plan? Do you have, just talking about water, what's your plan? If you can't walk over to the tap and get the water. Same thing goes with all your utilities that make your company run. Internet, power, anything that you need that's required as a fundamental resource for your company to operate should be part of your incident response plan. I think we dove into that last week and talked about that. Like, this is all part of that, right? This is what's going to make you resilient through all these different things that criminals, governments, other countries, militaries are attacking, right? And you're like, well, we're not the water company. We don't have to worry. Well, if you have an office or your company relies on water in some way, you could have a problem if this actually goes through. Randy, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we sound kind of like a broken record sometimes on this show, just talking about how important it is to get your business secured. And, even in this case, what you made me think of is some businesses will say, well, I'm too small to be a target or whatever. That is least relevant now than it's ever been, because I guarantee you that these attackers from Iran are fully using AI, and using AI. AI brings automation and AI brings scale. So, maybe you thought 2 years ago, I'm too small to get hacked. Well, even then, you were really too small to make the news, but not too small to get hacked. But now with AI and AI automation, it makes it financially feasible for any size of business by these guys. And if we're talking about psychological warfare and cyber war and all that kind of jazz, we just really need to be ready for this stuff. We need to be prepared for it. And it's not, oh, I got secure 2 years ago and boom, I'm good. No, it is a constantly moving target and a constant journey that we need to move towards. And that's getting secure from stuff like this.
And I know we're citing Fox News or Fox News Digital for this, but I'm a news junkie, and I check all sides, right? And something like this should be still on the front page news. Like, it seems like it was like, the date that first time it happened, it got reported, and all the techie articles was talking about it, but something this big should still be front and center.
It may have not.
We got more important things going on out there. I don't know.
Yeah, it may have not made the news, but the agencies are definitely aware of it. So FBI is involved, and you see CISA making some statements and stuff. So the people the agencies that matter seem to be involved. So we'll see.
All right, so that was our coverage about an attacker, a country, Iran, who knows, who wanted to, break something or see if they could break something. So let's talk about the attackers who wanted to get paid, because that's what the next two topics that we're going to bring to today's show are about. The one I want to talk about is, a story about people and business leaders need to think about how these guys got in, because we've been talking about this for a while, and it should sound very familiar to anyone who's been listening to the show for any time here. I'm going to talk about this Abbott Laboratories, and they're investigating whether 2 cyber incidents amid these extortion claims that are coming their way. So if you don't know, Abbott is one of the biggest healthcare companies on the planet. And in July, they disclosed that 2 different criminal groups were extorting them at the same time. And that's not uncommon for businesses to find out through the means of cyber researchers, cybersecurity people who are giving companies a heads up that, hey, there's some chatter here on the dark web about your company. That is a way that this stuff can surface. Or, hey, you're just plastered on the dark web leak site for everyone to see. And that's not good news when that happens. But, what gets me is how the big one started, not with malware, but again, with a phone call, right? And here we go with our friends over at ShinyHunters, who simply called Abbott employees, pretended to be internal IT, and talked them out of their Microsoft single sign-on logins, right? So that little code that pops up, probably a 2-digit number, somebody calls up and tells your people, hey, I'm from IT, I'm helping you with blah, 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 right? And we've seen this play out a lot of different ways, right? They'll send that particular employee, 100 emails, like in a span of like 2 minutes, right? And then they'll call them up at the same time and be like, hey, you see how those emails come in? You have an issue. We need to get on your computer and fix it. But, and then they make up some fake reason, some excuse as to why they need your 2-factor code to get onto their system, right? And the employees fall for it. They don't know any better because the company didn't train properly on what an actual support protocol looks like and when you need to hang up the phone and call somebody, because this isn't how it's supposed to go, right? These guys are learning. And what they're learning is that, like, the systems that we're putting in place, the layers of defense that Andre, Randy, and I have been talking about for years and years, right? Viruses, malware, patching, all this stuff is starting to turn a corner, right? Because of regulation, because of cyber insurance requirements, because companies are actually starting to do the right thing a little tiny bit. They're still not doing enough, but they're doing enough to just make it annoying. It's like a fly, right? They're just making it annoying enough for these cyber criminals. And now we're starting to see the pivot, right? And the pivot is we understand. They also understand like your employees aren't in their email as much because of AI, right? So phishing is not working as much. But this stuff is working, and we see it working all the time. Your employees are not being made aware. You put tools in place to block these cyber criminals, but you're failing to make this stuff real for your employees. And that's why this group, ShinyHunters, is so friggin' successful, because the employees, the weak link, and ShinyHunters knows it. And they hit 3-4 companies a day, it seems. And they do the same damn thing. They call you up. They either use the phone, they use Teams or whatever, and they trick your employees, and they get in the same damn way by stealing the Microsoft login. And it's usually Microsoft. I don't ever hear them saying, hey, they stole the Google two-factor, right? So I don't know why that is. My guess would be is because a lot of things, right? They use weak single sign-on protocols, and more than likely with a lot of companies, and I don't think this was the case at Abbott, but this is what I see, guys, and I'll let you kind of talk and let the world know what you guys think on this, but I see a lot of companies still giving people unknowingly like admin rights inside of their tenant, right? So the crazy thing is like, if they get into one of these accounts that has admin rights, they basically have the keys to the whole entire kingdom. They can do whatever they want to whatever account, whatever data you have in 365, they can do whatever they want at that point when they get one of these admin accounts in their hands. And I see it all the time. I had a company call us last week, guys, and they were like, we don't know how this happened. Well, the owner had a global admin account and he got hacked. Like, yeah.
I don't see how a IT person who's setting up something, like you said, it's an owner. So the owner doesn't know better and he trusts an employee, or he doesn't want to be called for every prompt that comes up. So like, let me just give him an admin account. But I also think within this case, they should have had some type of policy that says like, hey, we're recognizing that this request is coming from a different location and it's, impossible sign on where, usually you're in this city and all of a sudden it's showing up in this city. So there's a lot of things that could have been flagged. Another part of the situation that I saw here is that they had mentioned that they were using a legacy exact science system. And I wasn't sure what they meant, so I was researching it. And apparently in of this year, March 2026, they purchased or acquired Exact Science. And we always know that, when these acquisitions come, you a lot of times will now have, systems or what would be the word?
Dude, we see this all the time.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
When you inherit systems from a merger or an old project, right? These things, this is exactly where this stuff hides, right? And we try to advise private equity and merger and acquisition companies all the time on like, hey, let us go in and run an assessment on these companies that you're acquiring. And like they honestly told me like we see no value in that. Like that's the cost of doing business to us. Oh yeah? Like you don't know what you're talking about, because once you get nailed, the cost of doing business might sink the company you bought and your platform company or your parent company.
Yeah. Yeah. Standards. There's a lack of standards is what the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
I was in a discussion in the last couple of weeks, Bryan, and in this almost exact scenario you're talking about, and the company was offended that they were wanting to run like a cybersecurity risk analysis or something like that. Like, we got to get over that kind of stuff. We can't be too prideful or whatever, because you're right. When there's any kind of a merger, especially, the risk goes through the roof, because you're talking two different systems as well, right, that are coming together. And it's always good to get a good snapshot of really of everybody involved before that happens. So anyway.
Yeah, and then the other part of this story that I didn't hit yet was the fact that, you know, 2 separate crews hit Abbott, right, in the same time frame. And if the claims that are out there are holding up, we're talking about 30 million records and over 1 million social security numbers. And attackers, you know, what you should learn from this, and what I talk about on this show all the time, is hackers go on the dark web and talk to each other about what they're doing. So if ShinyHunters or somebody from inside ShinyHunters can tell another group, hey, we got in this way, we're over here doing this, blah, 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 right? Somebody could piggyback off that same attack, right? Call the same employee, or, hey, guess what? Abbott doesn't train their employees properly. Send them a bunch of emails and then call them and they'll let you into their system. Literally is what goes on in the forums in some other language other than English. That's reality, right, guys? I mean, the hackers are out there sharing information just like the cyber defenders are out there sharing information, right? Which is what we do on this show.
It's a community.
Yeah. What's up, Luke? Glad to see you again. So keep the comments coming. We like what we're seeing so far. Appreciate everyone supporting the show. And let's move on, Mr. Andre, because you have a similar story here. And, you know, it's these phone calls, right? And that's what you want to bring to the show. Exact same trick, different company, different, like, protocol, right? It wasn't an actual phone call. It wasn't to somebody's cell phone or desk phone. It was to Microsoft Teams. So let us know what happened here and how this ended up, Andre.
Yeah, so again, going back to our show notes, because I was like, man, it's like I felt like we talked about this already. And back in April, we talked about Microsoft warning companies that, like, hey, you know, the bad guys are using Microsoft's Teams as a way to get in. And specifically within that article, it was talking about how they were creating chaos within the company and basically saying, hey, we know you just got, you know, 100 spam emails. This is IT support. We need to remote in and you know, let us get into your computer. And they were using Teams as a way to communicate with the user. So now this article is more of a report from Sophos saying they're seeing a sharp increase in Teams phishing for 2026. And it's exactly kind of the same scenario where the attacker is contacting an employee. And as Bryan, as you related to your intro, you talked about how, you know, your employee security awareness programs for your employees need to change. And it's not just, you know, the emails, you know, like you said, more people are on AI, more people are communicating and collaborating in teams in this remote world. And now what the attackers are doing is they're contacting the employee through Teams, and it's going to maybe say, you know, IT support at, you know, whatever the domain name or something. Now, most people hopefully should set up their Teams where either it's only approved external domains are approved, or at least a little notification that says this is, you know, from an external domain. And then from there, you can be like, you know, at least your employees can like second guess it. But nevertheless, they impersonated internal IT or help desk personnel, and then only took about 2 minutes. And they were able to, in one case, about 90 seconds. And Sophos saw that they were then able to deploy ransomware on these machines. And we've all done it with Teams where we do share screen or allow remote control. And from there, they run their bad programs in the background and they're off to the races. We've even seen also using Quick Assist, which is a way that you know, a lot of people can help other people remotely. For us internally in our company, that's off. That, like, there's no reason why any of our clients should have Quick Assist. So these things are preventable if you hire or you have someone competent in your company doing this for you.
Yeah, and I think when we talked about it before, Andre, I think we we discovered that Microsoft, if you create a tenant from scratch, they were saying at the time, if you create a tenant from scratch at some point very soon, and this was in the last year and a half, I think, that the new tenant would have zero trust teams turned on by default, which means that it would be an allow list only of people who can reach out to you. And I would just say to the CEOs out there, it's a little annoying and a little frustrating if you got to reach out to your IT company to have them turn on a particular external access in Teams, but it's worth the trouble because you don't want to fall for something like this. You know, one little side note, we have said, hey, if they get their English down, we're going to be in big trouble. We've seen some of these recently that were super high sophisticated, but still they included colloquialisms, if you will, that people in the States just don't use. And it made people's alert go up and, you know, and they didn't fall for it. But still, you want to make your teams zero trust. I believe they're out of the box that way now. At least that's what Microsoft was saying they were going to do on new tenants. But yeah, definitely want to do that.
This might be common sense, but I'm going to say it anyway. You know, and I'm going to throw it in the chat comments now. But at the end of the day, you know, real IT, MSPs, they should not be cold calling your employees and asking for you to give them or approve remote access. There should be some other way that that's already done based on zero trust, as Randy stated, right? But your employees should have a way that they can verify if this happens. Like, the easy way to do it is kind of do it like the IRS does. The IRS will never call you, right, if there's a problem. You get a letter first, and you call them, or you send a letter back to them, right? You should operate your IT departments, your MSP, the same way, right? We will never call you for remote access. Like, we either already have it, or we'll have a different protocol for you to follow if we need to cross that bridge, right? So I don't know if you guys have any tips around like what you do in your company around that, but I would say, like, as policy, if you hired our MSP, we would tell you we never call you for remote access. It would never happen. Like, if we lose remote access in some way, there is a way that we're going to be able to verify that doesn't require you giving us your password or your two-factor.
Yeah, and this is something we definitely mention when we do our yearly security awareness training. We do live, or if it's virtual, whatever the case is. But this is like something that it's always going back to the basics. And every article that we talked about, it's like these are not complicated things for people to follow, and it's just, my gosh, man.
And 95% of these attacks, folks, that happen from these groups to U.S. and Canadian-based businesses are happening to mid-market companies that are in like services, business services, consulting, manufacturing, and construction. So these are not Fortune 500 companies, even though I talked about Abbott. These are not Fortune 500 companies that are getting hit the most typically. Abbott's like the rare one. That's the big fish that these cyber criminals want to go after all the time. That's not who they're hitting multiple times every single day. Multiple times every single day are companies you never heard of, companies, you know, in your community, in your backyard, that provide jobs to your local community. That's who we're talking about here. So, any last thoughts there, guys, before we wrap her up?
No, all good on my side.
All ready to go? Sounds good. All right, so that brings us to the end of the show, I guess, this week. I thought Randy might have some more comments in there. But we appreciate all the insights the guys brought to the show this week. Obviously, phishing is becoming a major problem for businesses that they got to really start paying attention to. And all three attacks really start the same way, with trust, right? The water systems, the healthcare giant Abbott, the company hit with ransomware, all let someone or something in, a device in, that's left online, and it's done so through some level of trust. So as Randy rightfully pointed out as he spoke, you got to really start looking at zero trust these days, because it's becoming harder and harder to stop these attacks, right? And if you want to level up your game and just, yes, I gave the businesses credit for actually starting to do some of the basics. We're just scratching the surface, though. But for those advanced companies that are already doing this stuff, and they understand what it takes to actually, make your company cyber resilient. If you haven't looked at zero trust, I would seriously consider it. With AI and all the things that we're seeing these cyber criminals do with AI and aiding their attacks, the attacker, again, it's not malware anymore. It's people in your organization who are deciding to trust things too much, whether it's a phone call, whether it's remote access into a system. That is the issues that we talked about and highlighted today. So if the show helped you understand cybersecurity a little bit more today, please subscribe or hit the like button and share us out wherever you're watching us. You can also visit our website at securitysquawk.com. All the episodes are listed there, as well as on YouTube. If you catch us on a podcast through audio, please leave us a review. 5 stars help other people find this content. And that's it. Thanks to Randy, Andre. Appreciate your support and bringing your topics to the show and your knowledge and insight. We'll see everyone next week. Stay safe. Take care.